Well, one thing is certain. Jesus didn't see Jewish tombs like these because Jews didn't bury their dead like this, nor did he see the Golden Dome of the Rock, which is a Muslim shrine, because, well, Islam was founded only about 700 years later. So maybe this wall is original, okay? And we'll need to use our imagination and read the text to capture the rest of the image that Jesus saw when he comes to Jerusalem. Hello everyone, and welcome to another vlog by Danny the Digger, and this time following the series of following Jesus in Jerusalem, we are entering Jerusalem. We are entering it here from the top of Mount of Olives. Actually, the top is behind me. And imagine the image that a peasant from the Galilee, a son of a tekton, a carpenter, comes to this magnificent city, and he sees this big urban metropolis with its focal point, the temple. No, not the Muslim Dome of the Rock. Imagine a big white edifice, the big Jewish temple that once stood at the very same spot, the place where animal sacrifice was being provided day and night, year round, and especially around the high holidays. And Jesus is, of course, entering Jerusalem towards Pesach. Okay, it's not only my imagination, and it's not only archaeology, but even Roman historians like Pliny the Elder, who says, when he describes the East, that Jerusalem is by far the most magnificent of the cities in the East. And yet, his response, his reaction, is actually predicting the destruction of the city. What a negative attitude, what a morbid approach. And where did that happen, and what exactly did he say? Well, here along the western slopes of Mount of Olives, we have this site with the very specific name in Latin. It's called Dominus Flevit, where the Lord wept, the sanctuary of the Dominus Flevit. And what is it referring to? It is referring to a specific text appearing in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 19, 41 to 44. Sadly, being a one-man show, I'm both recording and explaining. I just can't also hold the New Testament and read the exact words, but I will read the message. But this site is, by Catholic tradition, the place where it happened. And in the 1950s, the Franciscans, after purchasing the plot, also established here a beautiful chapel, another design by the famous Italian architect which they hired for their shrines, whose name was Antonio Berluzzi. We will follow his works in Gethsemane in the north, and Mount Tabor. Mount of Beatitudes is a magnificent piece of architecture that he designed there, and so on. But here at the western slopes of Mount of Olives, one can still see some, well, olive trees justifying the name. But I have to admit, most of Mount of Olives today is a big Jewish cemetery. Yes, in the Middle Ages, the Jews developed the notion that as Messiah is yet to come, in Judaism the Jews are still waiting for him, but they do believe that he will appear. When he does, and in Jerusalem, he will come from the east, he will come from Mount of Olives to rise all the dead for the final judgment. And yes, resurrection is guaranteed for all, including if you're buried in New York or in Sydney. But these will be like the front row seats of this final resurrection. And so this is a popular place for religious Jews, where they desire to be buried. The oldest tomb marks in the cemetery of Mount of Olives, they go back to, I think, the 13th or 14th century. In fact, right here there should be one of the older cemeteries, although you have to admit, this is a view. This is quite a view. And here are the tombs. Some of the tombs, these ones are still waiting to be repaired. Between 1948 and 1967, when this area was under Jordanian control, it was terrible systematic vandalism of these tombs, which is repaired to this day. But the focal point of this review is something else. It is the structure behind me, the chapel that marks where the Lord wept. And it is accordingly designed, well, supposed to echo a teardrop. Okay, yes, you need a bit of imagination or faith to follow this architectural, theoretical concept. But let's see the interior, and also let's see the view from the interior. And of course, as an archaeologist, I have one peculiar question. Is it the place where Jesus lamented over the fate of Jerusalem? And is it the place where that was identified also in antiquity? What is the archaeology of this site? So here we have an interesting capital. This one, I believe, dates to the time of the Crusaders, as this looks like a design of a fleur-de-lis. But I'm not even sure that this was found here, although we do have some more columns with capitals over them, and they seem to be now in situ, which is the Latin word archaeologists love using. It means in sight, in its original location. This suggests that in the time of the Crusaders there was a chapel here. But here's the intriguing part. We also have here a mosaic floor. And this one dates to the Byzantine period. That means this is already from the 4th, 5th, and 6th century, when the holy sites in the Holy Land were first identified. There is also like a chapel there in the back facing the east, interestingly enough, and a very long, detailed, ancient Greek inscription. Perhaps it will provide the answer of whether they identified this site also in antiquity as the site where the Lord has wept. Let's see the interior. And yes, also here we have some remains of a mosaic floor, including a niche here in the back, a chapel, and also an inscription. And here in the back you have the base of an altar, proving clearly one thing. This place was worshipped also in the Byzantine period. But here comes the problematic part. Both inscriptions do not relate to the subject of where the Lord has wept. Actually, these inscriptions, like I would say 90% of the inscriptions that one will find in an ancient church, also an ancient synagogue for that matter. What is the contents? You want to guess? Thank you, Mr. Cohen, for your generous contribution. These are all gratitude inscriptions. What's the word? Benedicting, or thanking the donor for providing for this structure. Now let me turn the camera to the opposite side so you'll see what an amazing view you have from here. And as it adjusts, now you can see what it's all about. This chapel is facing Jerusalem, it's facing the old city. Nowadays it is facing the Dome of the Rock, although in the back you do have there the dome over the tomb of Jesus. And of course 2,000 years ago, both domes, as well as the modern buildings in the horizon in the back, did not exist. What you saw is again the Jewish temple in full glory and all the sacrificial activity conducted in front of it. And although it was probably an amazing image, especially for someone coming from a rural countryside like the Galilee, Jesus' response is actually a prophecy that this will all be destroyed. He predicts that an enemy will come and will siege, conquer, and destroy the city. Not one stone will be left standing upon another. Now, recently I found in Josephus, a first century historian, a very interesting parallel to this. Apparently he was not the only one prophesying that the city will be destroyed. There is another person that is said to have lamented in predicting the fate of the city for 7 years before he was executed. A very interesting testimony. I will present the full reference in the description of this video. Here below you have another image referring to another quote from the New Testament about the chicken and the hens. Not sure about the English word, and I admit I don't remember the exact quote, but I will present it in the description of the video. They are both relating again to Jesus' image, a negative image of the future of the city that does not recognize its prophets, its messiahs, what will be its fate. Okay, now again, watching the interior, does this look like a dome? This is at least what the artist, or should I say the architect, had in mind. So on one hand, to conclude the archaeology here, you do have ancient mosaic floors. There was definitely a chapel here. The subjects are typical to the Byzantine period, meaning medallions, and each medallion has a different subject. But they are general images of, I don't know, the fertility of the land or something. Nothing religious and nothing that relates to what this place maintains today. The commemoration of where the Lord has wept. On the other hand, you have here two additional interesting features that I'd like to present. One of them over here is a rather white, plain mosaic floor, but it is part of a clear part of a wine press, a place where you would place all the grapes and then step on them, and then by gravity all the liquids will flow into the lowest part. And this is quite interesting because the name of the mountain is Mount of Olives, but apparently, I don't know if they grew vine here, but they did process them, as this seems to indicate. And here's another very interesting fact or suggestion. A rabbi called Jonathan Adler has written an article suggesting that this is also the place where the ash of the red cow was burnt, right in front of the temple. Now I must say that I didn't find that article to be convincing enough, but it is a proposal, and you know what, if it didn't happen here, it did happen somewhere in this area. And that again links us to Judaism in this area. Kind of windy. I hope it's not catching up too badly on the microphone. I do have now a screen of the wind. It's called a dead cat. Would you believe it? How can can you call anything that you're using a dead cat? People, I love cats. Don't turn them into accessories. Now, the other feature that was revealed here in the 1950s when this site was developed for the creation of this chapel is a burial cave, a 2,000-year-old burial cave, which is not surprising by itself. But we know that Mount of Olives was also in use for burials by the Jews, not the same way that they do today. Yes, these are the tombs and the burial practice of Jews today. I hope you can see it there in the distance. In ancient times, Jews would bury their dead in burial caves. In the time of the Old Testament, it was done in a specific shaped cave where the bodies were laid, and later, after the body decomposes and all you have left are bones, they were placed beneath in what's called a repository. And we have quite a few examples of such tombs. In the days of Jesus, the practice changed somewhat, that after the body decays, it was not placed in a repository, but each individual would be placed in its own bone box. These are called ossuaries, now, or gloskama in Hebrew, or Mishnaic Greek. And now some of them were quite nicely decorated, including the ones found here. But the most interesting part of it is the fact that on some of them both names were found, as well as a mark that looks suspiciously like a cross. Okay, and this is quite interesting. When this was, hold on, let me see if I can fix the camera here to talk comfortably. When this was discovered by the Franciscans digging here, they came up with a very interesting speculation, which was even approved by Professor Sukenik, a famous Jewish professor of the Hebrew University. And that is that maybe these marks were actually crosses, and the names, including names that appear in the New Testament, suggest that these are actually early Christians, early Jews who believe in Jesus, meaning they are Judeo-Christians. And that was a very, very remarkable assumption to draw out of this burial cave. And I have to confess, today no one follows this line anymore. Today these marks are understood as just a mark for which lid fits which box. And the names, even if you find names like Matityahu or Mary or even Jesus, Yeshua, these were very common names. I think Josephus mentions about over 30 people in the days of Jesus with the name Jesus. It was not an exceptional name. Same thing for John, for Joseph, for Judah. They liked certain names and they kept repeating them again and again. So I'm sorry, I don't think this is a burial cave of any early believers of Christ. But I do think that this is a remarkable testimony of how the Jews would bury their dead in those individual boxes. The reason is not clear, but I do follow the line that this might relate to belief of afterlife and resurrection and messianic beliefs. So yes, Jesus was living in the time that there was a lot of messianic expectations, which is perhaps even manifested in the way people bury their dead. So, not trying to have a morbid ending to this video, this is quite a remarkable, beautiful site. I'm also filming here on a beautiful winter afternoon, not noon, winter noon, and very quiet, almost no one here, thanks to the coronavirus. But what a place! What a place and what a view! And the next place, where should we go next? Following Jesus, so the entry has to be from Mount of Olives. Of course, he entered after mounting on a donkey's back in Bethphage. I'm definitely going to cover that site as well, although it seems that for now the site is closed. But then the text tells us that he goes up to the Temple Mount and he starts turning the tables of the money changers and dove sellers, arguing with the Pharisees, getting the priests upset, and all of this. But hold on. Before going up to the temple, every Jew had to do one thing at least, and that is become pure. You can't just go up to the temple unless you've purified. And although the New Testament doesn't care to record this, I'm sure that Jesus also immersed himself in the body of one of the public ritual baths before going up to the temple. And what was the biggest ritual bath before going up to the temple, assuming that Jesus entered from the south, as most people did according to the Mishnah? I believe it's down there in the valley. It's a site documented in the New Testament, but not as a place where Jesus purified, but where he conducted a miracle, healing, gaining eyesight to a blind man. I'm talking about the Pool of Siloam. And people, here you have some really interesting archaeology, because it turns out that the site was believed to be in a certain location already in antiquity. And in 2004, a friend of mine, Eli Shukrun, an archaeologist who was working in the city of David, he discovered the real Pool of Siloam, and that was quite a sensation at the time. What am I talking about? It's all down there, and to see the full review of the Pool of Siloam and the connection to Jesus and the New Testament, just make sure to follow my next review. And of course, if you want to make sure you get the alerts, hit subscribe and hit like, so you'll keep being notified. So long from now. Danny from Jerusalem, from the Holy Land, ending this beautiful noon, sunny winter review. God bless you all, and litraot.